Chapter 37. And Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, when 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And he was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought evil report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. And he said to them, "Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and look, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And look, your sheaves stood round about and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Will you indeed reign over us? Or will you indeed have dominion over us?" And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. Still he dreamed another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, "Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me." And he told it to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow down ourselves to you to the earth?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father observed the saying. And his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Do not your brothers feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said to him, "Here am I." And he said to him, "Go, I pray you, see whether it will be well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring me word again." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, "What do you seek?" And he said, "I seek my brothers. Tell me, I pray you, where they feed their flocks." And the man said, "They departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" And Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near to them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer comes. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, 'Some evil beast has devoured him,' and we shall see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he delivered him out of their hands and said, "Let us not kill him." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rescue him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again." And it came to pass, when Joseph came to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes. And he returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is not there, and I, where shall I go?" And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "This we have found. Know now whether it be your son's coat or not." And he knew it, and said, "It is my son's coat. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn in pieces." And Jacob tore his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I will go down into the grave to my son, mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold him into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Chapter 38. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her. And she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to your brother." And Onan knew that the seed would not be his. And it came to pass, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, in case he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, therefore he slew him also. Then Judah said to Tamar his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow at your father's house till Shelah my son be grown." For he said, in case perhaps he die also, as his brothers did. And Tamar went and lived in her father's house. And in the process of time the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up to his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, "Look, your father-in-law goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep." And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned to her by the way, and said, "Go to, I pray you, let me come into you." For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, "What will you give me, that you may come into me?" And he said, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Will you give me a pledge till you send it?" And he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" And she said, "Your signet and your bracelets and your staff that is in your hand." And he gave it to her, and came into her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and took off her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend to the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, "Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside?" And they said, "There was no harlot in this place." And he turned to Judah and said, "I cannot find her." And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, "Let her take it to her, in case we be shamed. Look, I sent this kid, and you have not found her." And it came to pass about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and also, look, she is with child by whoredom." And Judah said, "Bring her forth, and let her be burnt." And when she was brought forth, she sent a message to her father-in-law, saying, "By the man whom these are am I with child." And she said, "Discern, I pray you, whose are these, the signet and bracelets and staff?" And Judah acknowledged them, and said, "She has been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son." And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that look, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, "This came out first." And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that look, his brother came out. And she said, "How have you broken forth? This breach be upon you." Therefore his name was called Perez. And afterward came out his brother, who had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he concerned himself not with anything he had, except the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not concern himself with what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither has he kept back anything from me, but you, because you are his wife. How then can you do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he listened not to her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out. And it came to pass, when she saw he had left his garment in her hand and had fled away, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought in a Hebrew to us to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got out. And she kept his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spoke to him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant, which you have brought to us, came into me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she had spoke to him, saying, After this manner did your servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in a ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his own dream in the same night, each with its own interpretation, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came to them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Why do you look so sad today? And they said to him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, look, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, but her blossoms shot forth. and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you shall deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when you were his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with you, and show kindness, I pray you, to me, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I also had a dream, and look, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked breads for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up your head from off you, and shall hang you on a tree, and the birds shall eat your flesh from off you. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast to all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler to his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. This completes Parashat Vayeshev.